Carolina Biological Supply. And it's basically just a way of, so here we have, so that they lie flat when the straps are, this adds even pressure, and then you keep them tight, and it'll dry down into paper thin collection. This is just, I don't know what they did before a coronated cardboard, I really don't, but this acts like little chimneys, so that when you put it on a heat, oh, and I'm so glad he did this, so you put it on the heat, the heat comes up here, dries the plant, the vapors. You just don't want to make sure you just don't keep turning it back and forth, so that, because when the poor water bottle is going to go back and forth forever. So this is a ventilator, is the piece of corrugated cardboard. You can buy newsprint that doesn't have anything on it, but I just used the regular, and you don't want to have a lot of ink on it, because the colored ink don't absorb water very well. So, and then when you put your specimen, you put the date, you put where you got it, so the information is there with the specimen. We have blotter. This used to be very common. This is when they had used the real pens and you had to blot the ink, you know. But it's still used in a variety of archaic functions like herbarium sheets. So you have alternation of these. And so when you're in the field, they used to have things called vasculums, which were cylinders with a little drap door in them, you know, and you walk down there like that. They weren't heavy, but they were awkward. See, so the bag, you can just walk down the road like this, you know. The briars aren't going to bust your bag, you know. It's really important, though, when you go in to get a drink, take the bag off. People just really don't understand that sort of attachment. But a white bag, if it's a really hot day, you might put a little water in it, a couple of drops, but most of the time, just that will do. Now, specimens, we can start with the easy ones here. Maybe. Okay, well, this doesn't look very pretty, but it has some valuable, this is black cherry. And you probably notice in spring when it has the white flower, but it has fruit right now. So that's a very important piece of information. When do the fruits ripen? What sort of environment do you have plants producing fruit? Just because it does flower doesn't necessarily mean it's going to produce fruit. So you take this and you arrange it on your, and you want to arrange it in such a way, now why this is exactly the same size as your herbarium sheet. So you know, and so you say, well, let's see, maybe I don't want all that, so that's the vegetation. Make sure you have the two sides of the leaf, spread it out so that it doesn't look like you're hay baling. That's what we call it when you just stick it in and, it doesn't look very good. And then here we have the fruits. So we make a second one with just the fruits. And you can arrange it so that you have bark. You can take and put it in like that so that you can arrange it. With each one, you put the information on the side, so that's absolutely contingent with it. Some things you can put the whole plant in, like this one. This is a little plantain. blooming right now, but you probably don't notice it. And we can put several in so that they show, this has the fruit, this has the flower on it. We have the roots, so we know how much soil is taken up by where it's collecting its nutrients from. And this one's nice because the leaves are linear, so you don't have to worry about it. That'll make a nice collection right like that, you know. 2, sometimes 3. If it's an important one, you can make an additional one right next to it without the paper, because you have that information. You can tuck them in together. What about something, is trumpet creeper, so that we'll have fruits, we'll have buds, and we'll have flowers. So we'll have all of them in that collection. We'll collect it so that we have both the top and the bottom of the leaf, and also noting that it's a vine, so that you know the pattern. So this one would be something like, and then you can bend it up, or you can use, I often, if I've got enough sheets, I'll do like that. And this takes time, but unless you do it carefully, all you've got is a bunch of hay when you're done. Yeah, it's about as valuable as a bunch of hay, and you can feed it to your horse, but other than that, it's of little use. So, if it's a tree, you have to note that it's a tree, because you aren't going to take the tree. I mean, you could, but you would spend all your life on one specimen, you know, and it doesn't work very well. So you take the leaves, you may take a little bit of the bark, the twigs, so that you see the terminal bud and the shape, and the year-old and 2-year-old bark, so you get as much information as you can. Sometimes you have challenges. This happens to be sumac. So what in the hell are you going to do with that thing? You know, I mean, it's not going to fit. Well, what you can do is you can take a single leaf to represent the leaf, you know, and then once you've done that, then you can say, cut this off or bend it back, and cut that off, maybe cut this off. What you want to make sure, though, is that you have both the underside, and you can fit it like that, and then it will work fairly well. So it takes some ingenuity. Bending them in W's and U's and V's, and you know, any port in a storm to get that information. And things like this don't frequently, so you take a photograph of it, or you take and cut it in half. Opuntias, prickly pears, and cactuses in general are tough nuts to press. That's kind of a mixed metaphor there, isn't it? But what I discovered with Opuntia, thank God we only have 2. You can take a surgical steel knife and cut it in half and salt it. Salting the fleshy parts will then allow. I've had Opuntia flower in the press. You know, it dries, didn't care, it flowered. So you have to kind of desiccate it, and salt works well. I haven't seen that in the literature. It's just something that I figured out how to do. Yeah.
So you desiccate it, you use the salt before you put it in the press?
Yeah, just salt it. Yeah. But there's another problem though with a herbarium specimen. Fleshy items don't they shrink so that they're undersized, you know? And so you need to get some information about and indicate that this was fleshy, treated with salt or something like that, so you have a record of how you went about that activity. So each and every, there's no one right way to do it, but if you don't do it in an aesthetic fashion, and if you don't preserve as much information, you're just hay baling it. If you've got and you've got pieces sticking out, or I could take a look at a herb and say, this guy's not going to have anything, you know. If he's got a clump of grass, rather than taking it and separating it out, you know. If he's got a fruit like that, I might put it in a totally separate press, so that it doesn't affect the quality of the other specimens. Once this is put together, you cinch it up. Actually, this is really good if you have a dog as an assistant. You can get the dog to sit on it. I actually have trained several dogs to do this. And you gotta watch their tails. They really don't. But then and you can still buy these. You can, important, you can use the military belts. You just, 18th century, you could have done 15th century. Except maybe corrugated cardboard. I don't know what you would use, but then just extra blotter paper or something like that. Okay. The tighter it is, the better. And another thing that's going to ensure a bad collection is if you don't come back and tighten it up. You take this over on your wonderful plant dryer, you put it on, and there she goes, up. And how long does it take? Depends on the number of specimens. It depends on the heat. Got to watch the heat. I had a friend who was doing a Flora of Alaska, and he was out in his canoe, and he set up every night Coleman lanterns, and he put the plant presses over the Coleman lanterns, and it was a really bleak, drizzly day. So he put a tarpaulin over well, it got so warm under there, he caught all his specimens on fire, and he lost his whole summer collection. So, I mean, you just have to learn by trial and error on what makes a good specimen, what doesn't make a good specimen. Then you just take another expense is largely in paper, because a herbarium sheet will run you 22 cents a piece. And it's getting higher because the rag content is harder to get. You know, all of our T-shirts are going to the third world countries now, and not going to the rag bins for making paper. So that's the sort of art. My father and my mother were artists, so I think maybe one of the reasons that drew me into taxonomy, into herbarium specimens, is it was the most aesthetic of all sciences. They made me take, most of the people would say, you gotta take something practical. Go take biology, take physics. My parent says, you gotta take art. I had a minor in art as an undergraduate, you know, and so I was kind of programmed to take and look at the more aesthetic sciences, and maybe that's why I came into this detritus world. Couple of things is that everyone wants to know what a plant is. And what the herbariums will do is that you say, I know it's a damned aster, you know? So you can go in there and you can lay out all the asters and you can say, oh, this is what makes this species, this is what makes this species, this is what makes this species. You also use these identification books, and some are better than others. One of my favorites deals only with trilliums, but it is incredibly detailed about trilliums. 7 years to bloom, seeds distributed by ants, very, very localized in distribution as a result of that distribution pattern. The seeds, oh, these are so cool. The seeds have a little food packet right on the, called an eliosome, if you really want to know the name. Don't ask me to spell it. And the ants, that's food for the ants. So they carry it back to their nest, take it down there, the youngsters feed off of and then they take the seeds and remove them. So they're scattered around this old ant mound. The water trickles down. There's, I'm sure I've never analyzed the growing value of ant shit, but I mean, there's got to be it's got to be some nutrients there. So I mean, so there is, they're all in little mounds. I mean, who would have thought? But it's one of the reasons why trilliums are so endangered right now, because our native ants, which are doing the distribution, are being outcompeted by things like fire ants, which are non-native. And do you realize that 40% of our spring flowers use this mechanism for seed dispersal? Just think of what's going to happen. 40% of our spring flowers without a means of dispersal. Just another thing to keep you up at night. If you want to look at plants via communities, there are two that I recommend. Forest plants of the Southeast, very, very, lots of information, not a large number of species, but the common ones, the grasses, really nicely done. This one is a little bit more detailed and deals with more communities than just forests. But my favorite one, and Dan's the one who showed me about this book, is this one, The Wildflowers of Tennessee and the Ohio Valley. Now don't read the cover. You'll never open it, because you say, but it works beautifully for here. And the thing I like about it is it groups it's a rose. Well, it's got the roses grouped together. And then it has the common ones beautifully illustrated, and then it tells you some of the more rarer ones and how they differ. So it has a diversity of plants that the others don't have because of that. And it gives you a lot of, and it's not expensive. And it's designed to take in the field, as opposed to the Flora of the Carolinas. 1968, I think it was. It's incredibly detailed and incredibly out of date. All of the names have been changed to protect the guilty or the innocent, I don't know. So how do you deal with that? They still have some of the best illustrations, though, and range maps. Remember, there's a lot of dots that aren't here because these are 68, which is, whoa, that's a long time ago. So you can go to the North Carolina Botanical Gardens website. I'll just show you. I can't show you because you don't have, but you go to my website at the university, USC Herbarium.org, or just USC Upstate, and go to the Herbarium site there. So there's two ways of getting to it: USCUpstate.edu or USCUpstateHerbarium.org. And I'll show you what, and This is the 2008 version that is no longer available in hardbound. There are no illustrations. There are nothing to help you, okay? The reason being is the old birds that wrote this have not released the drawings. So they're now producing it free of charge, but without drawings.
Aren't they dead?
Well, but there's still, the University of North Carolina Herbarium has the drawings, and so they have in perpetuity. Last night, I went on to see their latest edition. It's called the Flora of the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic. Now they've included not only North Carolina and South Carolina, but Virginia and Florida and Georgia. So now it's 1,000 pages long, and it's still a work in progress. They've rearranged it so you can't find the families, and there's still no illustrations other than distribution maps. And the distribution maps are excellent. But this you can get, I have it here in case you want to take a look at it. I have one other thing to show you, and that is something that I'm making available free of charge. And it's, over the years, I've taken a lot of photographs of plants. So, and so I said, well, they're all in a hodgepodge. Why don't we try to organize them? 6,000, 7,000 photos. And they're very informative. What I've done is I've organized them by families, and I've put them on a thumb drive. And you can say, it's a member of the rose family. You can pull up that file, and it'll have all of them in alphabetical order, and they're named. So you can take a look and see, instead of taking all the herbarium sheets and spread them out to Dubuque, you can do it at the leisure with a cup of coffee. So we'll just, I guess I better tell them I'm here. And so here we go. Are
you up?
No, I'm not really, I'm locked. There we go. Now I'm up. Okay, here we go. So here is the list. No, it isn't. Well, it's a list by alphabetical order of the families, okay? So, there they are! Okay, let's just do with, so I want the passiflowers. Now, I don't have all of them. Come on. Well, let's go with something a little bit more exciting. How about the asters? Okay. So here are all my charts of the aster relatives. And so you can say, and you can scroll down through them. The C's, the D's, and you say, maybe it's this one. And you can, let's say, no,